Sorry about that. I didn't know why I didn't have it up. Okay. Tracy, you can go on. I'll catch up.
Okay, it's not working for me. Whatever format this is, it's not working on my system right now. Somebody just email it to me.
Okay, let me look for it right now.
The one I received was in a PDF. Did you get that one, Tracy?
It's some sort of a Google thing and it's not working. I'm having all kinds of issues today. I don't know if there was an issue with Outlook, but it's giving me a message that I can't open it. So if you could just email the PDF to me, I can get it that way.
Okay. I am looking for the board packet.
And I can't get the virtual background to work today either.
I'm going to share this with you, Tracy. Okay, so I sent it. Hold on.
This is Susie Navarro. Hi. I can email it to you. Can you just confirm your email address for me, please?
I already sent it. Finley, kill them.
Did you send it, Dr. N.T.?
I did. Tracy, I gave you the Google Doc. Finley, come on. Let us know when you're in.
All right, I'm in. Hold on, get this situated.
Because thanks, Susie. She needs the Google Doc. Well, actually, you don't, huh? All right. Let's see.
Yeah, no problem.
But we have it now.
Okay, I'm ready. All right, so it is 6:04 and we are calling the Reach Board meeting of September 28th to order. Do we have a roll call?
Jen, are you muted? Oh.
Okay, sorry. It's hard to go. I try to keep you. I have to go back and forth between the screens, so it's hard. Okay. Oh, now I can't get on this one. Okay, Alam is absent. I am here. Carla. No, Carla. Robert.
I'm here.
Oops. Tracy.
Here.
And Ashley.
Here.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, we have a quorum. So we on to item 3, introduction of guests.
I'm Susie Navarro, one of the assistant principals, so I'm here.
Mute.
Denise Angel, the director of special ed.
Rachel Taylor, Special Programs Coordinator.
Joanna Thomas, Director of Business Operations.
Marcus Finley, Assistant Principal.
And we see parents on the call. You can go ahead and introduce yourself, Miss Avila. You have to unmute.
Xochitl Avila, and my daughter is in 4th grade. I'm fifth grade.
Well, 5th grade, welcome. And other parents?
Hi, Ashley Askins, my Askins parent. She's in 1st grade.
Welcome.
I'm also on. My name is Meyer Stokes. My daughter's Haley Meyer, and she's in 4th grade.
Thank you. And the last name is Stokes, correct?
Yes, my last name is Stokes.
Perfect. Welcome.
Wait, what was your first name, hon?
Myra.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Catherine Cook. I'm on for my daughter Everly Cook, and she's in 1st grade.
Welcome.
Stacy Salgado. My son is Derek Shigoya, and he's in the 2nd grade.
Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you.
I see a Galaxy S9. Who's that?
There's also an Anna Manjuia.
Oh, Anna just said that it's not letting her unmute.
Okay,
She's
I'll just write it
Jacob's. Munguyas?
Mungia.
I'm quite sure I butchered that.
Mungia. I think it's Mungia.
Awesome.
I admit.
He's in the 2nd grade. Welcome.
Where's the chat?
Oh, sorry. I was trying to unmute Anna. Thank you, Anna. Welcome. It won't let me do it either. Any other parents on the call, please?
Brandy, carry on.
Brett, thank you. Welcome. I see a name, M-A-N-A-A-L. Not sure if we captured you or your name.
I wrote it down.
You wrote it down? Okay.
I just got to go back and write it in.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone to our board meeting. Thank you for coming.
My name is Evelyn Ruiz, and from Jonathan Reda, 1st grade.
Thank you, Evelyn. Jen,
Great. Is that everybody?
I'm sorry. Somebody said my name. Of course, I can't see you.
Oh, I just said Jen. Did we get everyone?
I've written everybody down, so now I'm going to transfer it. So yes, we're good.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay. Welcome everybody. We're moving on to item 4, which is review and approval of the agenda. Are there any comments, changes, corrections? Do we need to move anything around on the agenda tonight? Okay, hearing none. Move to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
You have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Agenda is approved. On to item 5, an invitation to the public to speak. Does anyone on the call tonight want to address the board? See no chats. Okay. Seeing none, we are on to item 6, which is 6.1 Director's Report. Dr. Renti, you're up.
All right, fantastic. Let's see. If I'm jumping all over the place, it's because I was still working out numbers for the LCAP until like 5:45. But I'm going to try to be coherent tonight. Can you flip that light on? Yeah. All right. So, it didn't help. Currently, we, let me see. I want to start with an enrollment update. So we've discussed with the board that the school is basically paid on, will be our apportionment or our funding will be based on last year's ADA. And that ADA was capped last February when, right before COVID, right? So what that means is that whatever numbers the school had in terms of average daily attendance, that is the amount of apportionment that we receive per child, per student. The reason why that's not in Reach's favor is because our February attendance tends to be the lowest out of the year. Kids are out due to colds and, the flu season. And so we normally see our attendance drop to a like 94% attendance rate. And so that really hit us in the pocket in terms of our apportionment that we would be able to see for this year, ADA per kid. We're also impacted by the fact that, we have growth this year. So last year, I believe we ended the year under 600 kids. We're now over 600 kids. So initially we were not sure if we would be funded on that growth. Luckily, there is a growth plan that Amita will talk about later. So we will see we will see, you know, hopefully funding for those additional kiddos, which is fantastic. We weren't planning on it, but we do see that additional funds. But that being said, you know, ADA is very important, and so is enrollment. So even though there's no ADA, we're not reporting daily attendance, our enrollment will impact our funding for the year. So currently we have an enrollment of 637 kids as of today. We always see a dip in enrollment at the beginning of September, as we don't really know if kids are actually going to be in attendance until they show up. And some kids have shown up like on day one, and a few of them have dropped for various reasons. A couple of reasons, like we actually, quite frankly, got a couple individuals that said like, this is too hard. Their kids weren't ready for the rigor at Reach. But for the most part, we still have a waiting list in some grade levels, and so we're able to backfill. And I believe like last week we were 634. I believe I reported those numbers to Amita. As of today, we're 637. We would like to, by CalPADS Day, be at 640, if not above. And the reason for that is this: what I indicated before was that there is, I think, well, again, Amita knows better than I do, and she'll give us details on that today, but it looks as if the governor has approved, you know, allocations for that growth. And so the higher our attendance is on the 7th, the better off we are in terms of cash flow. So we are hoping to get our attendance numbers up to, again, we're almost there, 637 currently. If we can get it to 640 or higher, then that'll impact our cash flow even more positively as we go into some very lean months at the end of the year, where we're looking at the very real possibility of deferrals. So that's where we are as far as attendance is concerned. Any questions with regards to that?
I have one.
Yeah.
Do we have a plan to, you know, to increase enrollment? Are we doing anything in particular, you know, that might jumpstart that in the next, what is that, the next week?
Yeah, we're pretty close to there. So Rachel is back. She's on the call. Hi, Rachel. So Rachel actually handles enrollment. She handles enrollment in all of our communications, and she does an amazing job, by the way. And so what she's been doing is getting the kids off the list and getting them enrolled as quickly as possible. And then we've actually done some Facebook posts where we'll boost the post and target our targeted audience, because we tend to, what we find is that the lower grades, like first grade, and some of the lower grades have very healthy wait lists, kinder being one as well. But at the upper grades, there isn't a wait list. And so if someone walks in the door for 5th and 6th, we can basically seat them now. The numbers aren't too bad. I mean, we have an average of probably like 30 kids per class. We'd like to get it to 32 for 5th and 6th. So it's not far off, but obviously if you have 6 classes, you know, 6 times 2, that's 12 extra kids. If we can get them in, that would be fantastic. But to your question, Tracy, we haven't spent a lot of money on advertising, very little. Most of our parents come through word of mouth, or we now have parents that come to the area looking for a charter school, and that's how they find us. We spent money last year, or the end of last year, on mailers. We sent, you know, I think over $1,000 on mailers. We also, and I don't think we got any bites off of that. And so we spent money on an ad at the local mall at Tyler, which was really fun. But then COVID happened, so we don't know if those monies were worth it or not. So,
well, the mall just opened again, so maybe it'll get some hits.
A little bit of hits.
Somebody will see it now.
Yeah.
Dr. Rinty, which grades have room in them?
So Rachel can answer that more readily than I can, but I know 5th and 6th definitely has some spots in there without a waiting list. Rachel, is there any other?
I have a parent looking for 2nd and 3rd grade.
We have a waiting list still for 2nd and 3rd.
Okay, thank you.
And we have a couple spots in TK with no waiting list. But yes, 5th and 6th definitely.
5th and 6th are available, but not 2nd and 3rd.
So it tends to be TK 5th and 6th, yeah. So so that's kind of where we are. You know, we lose kids to STEAM, you know, the STEM Academy, which is great. You know, they're somewhere for them to be through middle school, and so we get that, and we wonder if reach ever goes to middle school, if that will change with some of that attrition. However, at the end of the day, I mean, the numbers aren't bad, but of course, if we can boost them, and we're definitely trying to do that, then we will. Rachel, how feasible is it to get to 640? It's only like a few more spots. I mean, if the numbers that I'm looking at are accurate.
Well,
I pulled up the Aries numbers. Are my numbers off?
I have some pending applicants. So I do have open spots that I have applicants to fill into those spots, but we're just waiting on their acceptance. So hopefully, I think I have at least 5, maybe 6 that are pending. So I'm hoping to get us to 432, to 430, I mean, sorry, 640 by next week.
So the CalPETS Day is creeping up. And so again, that will be our ADA for the year, as we are not reporting attendance on a daily basis, but our teachers are having to spend a lot of time on tracking engagement. And so that's a whole nother ball of wax. But yeah, that's where we are. Maybe this year, we'll see if the need arises to continue to backfill those spaces. It'll be interesting to see though going forward, because this is going into next year. For instance, this is the first year that we are not growing per se. Like we finally stabilized in all of our existence. Like we are at capacity with all of the grade levels being completely built out, so to speak. So we had that step and ladder thing going. And so this year we added our last 6th grade class. And so with that stabilization, I'm wondering if, we don't end up building really robust waiting lists. We'll see.
I think COVID is just a big X factor. One final question. What was the ADA again that we're set at for funding?
Amita, what are we set at in terms of ADA, do you know?
So the minimum that you'd receive this year would be last year's ADA, which was 563.5.
Okay.
But as Dr. Enti mentioned, there is the potential for funding off of your actual enrollment this year. And so based on that, the maximum that you could receive is based on your budget, which would be 611. So.
Oh, okay.
Pretty big swing.
Okay.
A nice swing, right? Yeah. Which is kind of, that's in our favors, right? The fact that we're paid based on the number of kids that are enrolled versus the number of bodies and seats. And so it automatically goes up proportionally.
Okay.
Yeah. A COVID update, and then I'll talk about waivers, and then I'm done for today. I mean, until we talk about the learning continuity plan. So with regards to COVID, so as of Tuesday, September 22nd, Riverside County moved into, they went from the purple tier to the red tier. And what that basically means, red is considered substantial. And so we would have to be in that tier for 14 days before schools are allowed to reopen. Now the Riverside public health officials will have to approve the opening of Riverside schools, and then all district preparations must be complete before they're allowed to open. So the question becomes, who determines whether our particular school is ready to open, or is the county going to just open up all Riverside schools? That's unclear. So we did move forward last week, and we did apply for a waiver. And with that waiver application, our prospective reopening date is November 1st. And so, yeah, let me just stop there, and I'll talk to you about some things that we're doing to get ready for that November 1st opening should we be approved the waiver. And again, something could happen in the countywide if we continue to, move from, one tier to the next. The county could be open even before we get to November 1st. But I'll answer some questions with regards to what we're doing to prepare. But I want to stop and see if there's any questions around the reopening, or how we can reopen, or what that looks like. And I guess what I'm saying is that it's kind of nebulous. We did contact the district today, RUSD, to see their understanding of what the county is saying as far as the 14-day waiting period, and the fact that the health officials have to approve the reopening of Riverside. So what does that look like? And if it's open, you know, what does that mean to all of us? And the district didn't have any answers today. I think there was a big meeting, and so I couldn't get any answers there. And I had our school nurse contact the district. She's called for the last 2 days, or the county office, really, the health department, to see how a school can substantiate their being ready, if that makes sense. And so she hasn't been able to get any answers. I don't know if people know. They'll know in a minute. They just, the answer's not readily on anyone's tongue right now. But we've moved forward with the waiver way, just so that we have a couple of irons in the fire.
I won't comment on that.
Okay.
Hey, Dr. Renti, on the outside chance that the school system, the Riverside school system, opens up before November 1st, would we move to their date, or we would stick with the 1st?
So that's like a good question. Trying to get, that's a really good question. I think that I have reasonings for waiting until November 1st, but if the whole county opens up, I think we would just have to follow suit.
Okay.
Right? If all the surrounding districts open up, I don't know that we would want to lag, but I can talk to you about some reasons why we're holding back a little bit. Jen?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Tracy. I'll go. Someone on.
From what I had heard about RUSD, they were looking at the 14-day waiting period and then another 28 days. Okay. So I don't think RUSD is going to be there before November. So just to compare.
And that's kind of commensurate with what, you know, I talked to the liaison. We have a monthly meeting, the RUSD liaison and myself. It's a really good symbiotic relationship right now, which is great. And she said something very similar. So I don't know because you don't want to just open your doors and everyone's back. It's going to be like a gradual reopening. And I think for REACH, there are a few things that we are doing in preparation to make sure we're ready on day one. What were you going to ask, Tracy?
No, my question has to do with, you know, the possibility of the district just saying, everybody come in, and I, you know, at any rate, would people still have the option to distance learn if that's their choice?
Good question, 100%. So for the rest of the year, if a parent wants to keep their child at home and learning from home, that will be an option. The same 3 parent options that we identified in the summer will still stay in effect. So we'll have hybrid, and then we will also have the essential workers, their kids can come 4 to 5 days a week, hybrid kids 4, and alternating. And we've already placed kids in hybrid. So we know exactly who's going to be on campus and for how long. And I'm sorry, I got a little distraction right now. Exactly how many people will be on campus and which options have been chosen. And with that, we know that we have the right setup, which will allow us to have half of the kids or less in any particular classroom at one time. And so we have already walked out the spaces. We can physically distance all of our kids. We have shields in classrooms ready to go for those little kids that we can't physically distance because their classrooms are either smaller or their tables are smaller. But we definitely have worked out those numbers to see who's on campus. We've also let parents know that they cannot change those options until January. So everyone that, they had until school opened, honestly, to change options. And so right now it's pretty much etched in stone and we're ready to go once we do open our doors. And so we have, let's see, about a quarter of our kids are essentials, meaning they need to be on campus every day. And then more than half of our kids are going to be on distance learning so far for the rest of the year, at least through this this fiscal year or physical year or calendar year, sorry. And so that allows us to plan for now through December And then we told parents that in December, if they needed to change options, if something happened in the workplace where they now need their kid on campus, then, you know, we will open that up as again, but it will obviously be determined by whether or not we have seats, because we will still have to keep the numbers as is and make sure, again, we're not having more than half the kids on campus at any given time.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions with regards to that? So as I said, we applied for the school waiver last week. Our prospective reopening date is November 1st. Some of the things that we're doing in preparation is just starting today, we have the hand washing stations being installed, and it is a huge job. Like, entire side of the building is been dismantled, and so we have 2 stations going in with, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how many, I think 15, maybe more, 20 or so hand washing yeah, I don't want to guess. I should know the number, but we have, you know, the hand washing stations being installed outside. And then once this particular construction company is done with that, they'll be installing water bottle filling stations, because as we said before, our water fountains have been, cordoned off, so the kids can't use water fountains. So we had to install ways for them to refill water bottles. Like, we have a water bottle filling station in the MPR, our multi-purpose room, but we are installing 3 more outside period, to make sure kids have ample opportunity to refill water bottles. We'll be asking parents to send water bottles with names on them. We'll provide, you know, cups or whatever we need to do for kids that come without one. Obviously, no kid will go without having access to water, but those are the ways we're intending to keep kids safe. So that's being done. We have ordered signage to be placed all around the school for physical distancing, to remind everyone of our health and safety protocols. And so those are being made specifically for REACH, and so we're still waiting on those to arrive. Our staff have been creating shields for the tables for the lower grades. So TK, Kinder, 1st and 2nd grade work from tables and not individual desks. And so we're handcrafting shields that will go in between individual students to make sure, sneeze guards basically, for all of those desks. And so our staff are working on that. They're finishing up the Kinder wing, and then they're moving on to 1st grade and then 2nd. And so that's being done. It's taking us a while, but they're doing a fantastic job. And as well as striping and things like that are still underway. So we talked about the lines showing the egress and ingress, so in and off campus, so that kids have very clear demarcations of which way to go, so that we're not passing one another or crisscrossing, right? We're trying to make sure everyone's facing in the same direction as we transverse throughout the campus. And then more importantly too, is we were kind of holding back just a little bit to finish the special ed buildings that are going in. That will, because we're limited in space. Special ed's been occupying a very small room. Right now we're renting an additional classroom from the church so that special ed can provide resource and services to kiddos. And so once we get those buildings installed, it'll significantly like open up in terms of like just space for us. So we would like to hopefully have the construction completed by November 1st as well. And if it's not complete, at least have the buildings delivered, so that when kids are in class, they don't have these big cranes delivering, you know, a lot of noise and delivering large reloads on the campus in the middle of us trying to teach. So all of those things seem feasible between now and November 1st. And so it just seemed like a really good projection date for us. Yeah. And so, and kind of given like Jen's information that she just gave us, you know, the district won't be started, you know, they won't be opening up, it doesn't look like, before then anyway. So it looks like we're in good shape, good company. So that's where we are. Any questions? Nope. All right, that's it for my report today. And if you all, if you want me to include anything else in my report next week, let me know, or next month. I'll shoot out an email, and you guys can just give me the line items that you're interested in, but I try to make sure I bring I'll bring a COVID update, a facilities update, and where we are obviously with the waiver when I see you all again. So that's all I have.
I'm sorry, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
When we shift to the students starting back, because November 1st is a Sunday, so we're looking at the Monday the 2nd, right?
Thank you.
Okay. When will we know if we're on the hybrid, what week, if the kids will start back that week or if they'll start back that following week?
So that's a good question. I'm assuming like 2 weeks before. I mean, do you all, so someone that's on hybrid, would that be enough time for you to pivot? Like a 2-week window? That seems feasible, right? Yeah, because we'll know like for sure, and yeah. So I would say by the 15th of October, we'll notify parents that this is happening. We'll also, we were kind of waiting for some information with regards to construction and waiting for the waiver itself, obviously, to tell parents that this is actually happening. But yeah, you can expect some kind of a notice up ahead of time. So yeah, any other questions? All right, so now we're ready to move on. Tracy, where'd you go?
She had to step away. So we'll go on to 6.2 financial report.
Awesome. And do you have co-host privileges, Amita? If not, Rachel can give it to you.
It looks like I do.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, so can you see the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay, so in terms of the financial update today, we were going to do the July and August financials. So it's the first update for the year. As Dr. N.T. was talking about in terms of our funding, there is a growth funding waiver that was signed into legislation through SB 820. And so what this graph depicts is kind of the difference in revenue that you're looking at between the different scenarios. The forecast that I'm presenting today assumes about 5.62 million in LCFF revenue on the far right-hand side, which is essentially you getting funded off of your actual enrollment, which at the time was 632 when we did these financials, multiplied by the state attendance percentage, which is 95.5%. So regardless of how many students of the 632 that are actually attending, the state is just gonna do kind of an average attendance percentage on that enrollment number that you have as of October 7th. So this number is subject to change based off of what your actual enrollment comes in at, but the forecast we're presenting today assumes this at this point. As I mentioned before, essentially the minimum amount of funding that we would get is based off of last year's ADA if we didn't apply for this waiver, which would result in about a $400,000 reduction in revenue. And so that is pretty substantial if this waiver for some reason wasn't to go through, but at this point the bill has been signed and it's just a matter of us submitting the waiver and documenting the enrollment that we have. The maximum that we could get is the charter budgeted ADA, which would come out to 5.64 in revenue. So another about 20,000 in revenue if we were to get to the maximum enrollment. And then in terms of the financials, so the forecast at this point for our operating income, when you approved the budget for REACH for this year, we did budget an operating loss of 77,000. We are currently projected an operating surplus of 242,000. This again assumes that we're funded off of 632 students. And so if we do meet budget, this could go higher. If we don't meet the 632, it could go lower. Our fund balance is looking really strong. It's higher than budget. We're at 1.7 million in terms of our fund balance. And in terms of our breakdown of the fund balance, so of that 1.7 million, about 800,000 of that is restricted. So almost 50% of it is unrestricted, while the other 50% of it is tied up in the school's facility assets. And so overall, looking a lot more liquid than we have in previous school years, which is good timing given some of the increases in deferrals we're anticipating later this year. In terms of why we're looking so much better than budget in terms of operating income, so we're seeing a $318,000 increase in operating income for this year. The biggest drivers of those are revenue. So the first one listed here is LCFF. We were anticipating almost an 8% cut in funding, but the state did approve flat funding between last year and this year, and so that increased our revenues by about 451,000. The state also allocated some of the CARES Act funding that the state received for K-12 education. So it's through two different funding grants, the ESSER and the LLM revenue. Both of these are restricted funds, and so we do have to spend them on certain expenses related to distance learning, learning loss mitigation, COVID-related expenses, and so those are restricted funds, and we have identified expenses for those funds to cover. The other smaller adjustments that we're seeing is listed in the middle here. So we have borrowing fees where we saw about $23,000 in savings. So we're anticipating less draws on the line of credit given some of these increases in revenues. We've actually received a lot of the CARES Act funding up front at this point. We just received it last month, and so that's helping offset some of these expenses that we've been incurring with distance learning and ramping up to potentially reopen schools. So that's helping with our cash flow. So less draws on the line of credit means about $23,000 in savings. Other revenue adjustments, $9,000 in increased revenue projections. Most of this is title funding, but about $3,000 of it is related to special ed revenues that we've been able to true up. Facility savings, so facility expenses, we're seeing a net of about $4,000 in savings, but this is made up of a few big items. So the biggest adjustment we had is we were anticipating construction to be completed in July, and we've now pushed that to November in our forecast. And so what that means is you have savings on depreciation expense since we're spreading that expense over the life of the lease. And so we see some savings this year, but then it pushes it out into future years. And then those savings were offset partially by increased costs related to a security system. And so, those were they netted to about $4,000 in savings. In terms of the other small adjustment, we have special ed 3-year assessment. So we had additional budget that we increased some special ed costs related to assessments. Again, some of that is offset by some of the other revenue adjustments. So not a huge impact on your overall budget. And then in terms of the major offsets to the budget, the first one is about an 8 ADA decrease. So this is essentially if we're seeing revenue come in at the 632, if we're funded off the 632 instead of budgeted ADA, the overall impact to your budget, not just including LCFF revenue, that previous slide I showed was just LCFF revenue, the overall impact is about $56,000. So if we are funded at budget, we could see an additional $56,000 in revenue. So it just depends on what our enrollment is as of October. In terms of compensation and benefits, we saw an increase of about $66,000. This is half of this is related to health and welfare benefits, and then the other half of it is related to additional positions that we've added and anticipating costs there. In terms of the last two items, so these are the biggest items, they're both flagged with LLM. So they were funded out of the CARES LLM revenue that we received. And so those kind of wash a little bit with each other. And so the certificated salaries are related to increasing positions and stipends for staff, along with the LLM, DL, distance learning, and PP supplies. Those are increased costs related to curriculum, online instruction, computers, and additional like the water hand washing stations and water fountains that we were discussing earlier. And so those are some of the increased costs that we're seeing at the school site. And again, majority of that is funded from the LLM revenue. as those are restricted funds for that purpose. Any questions on those adjustments? Okay. So then the next few slides go over cash flow, just because the operating income looks pretty good in terms of our, in our numbers, but the way that the state is paying for these, all of these funds is through increased deferrals. And so the graph doesn't specifically depict it, but something to note is that we're anticipating partial deferral starting in February of this year, going through June. So payments starting in February won't be received until starting in July of the next school year, all the way until November of the next school year. So we're anticipating it adds up to about almost $1.5 million in deferrals at this point. So that's $1.5 million in cash that we normally would receive before June 30th of this school year being received next school year. And so that's a huge amount of cash that we're not receiving. And given kind of our, we've been improving our cash position all of these years, and we were anticipating, being able to reduce our, dependency on the line of credit. Essentially, all of the different financing sources that we have access to at this point are now going to help us get through these months of deferrals. And so what this graph shows is essentially our cash balance. It's a little bit, jumps kind of up and down, but essentially we're anticipating the cash balance to need some draws on or outstanding balance on the line of credit until November of next year. What the orange bars depict is your draws on your line of credit and the CAM private loan that you took as well. So that was those two short-term kind of financing options with CAM. And then the purple bar depicts the PPP loan that you have. And so that's a long-term loan. And so that has more time that you can pay off, and it's on a set schedule. So essentially what this is depicting is that we pay off the PPP loan over the next 3 years until February of 23. But we're not seeing any draws or need of the line of credit after October of next year. We do hit a maximum of about $1.4 million in lending at the end of this school year, given the deferrals adding up at that point and not starting to see payments on those until July and then all the way till November. The other thing that this cash flow assumes is that we do pay off the $200,000 loan with CAM by April. And so that's kind of right in the midst of your deferrals. And so if we get an extension or if we can renew that loan, that will also help with some of the need for the draws on the line of credit and being able to use that as a source instead of the line of credit. But overall, with the PPP and the line of credit, we're not anticipating needing additional financing to get through deferrals this year. However, I did include a few slides on some of your options if we were to look at some other options in terms of financing. The other thing, oh, actually, I have a slide on it too. So I'll just go through the next few slides.
Well, wait, Amita, can you go back? So I'm looking at your graph, and if I were to look at this, I would assume that we drew down funds in July, August, September, and we did not. So I'm not understanding. So,
yeah, so right now on our line of credit, our balance is a little over 500,000. We've been making payments on the line of credit. So the orange bar you can see kind of goes slightly down over the next few months. And what that means is that we're paying off more on the line of credit each month than we're taking out.
Is it the line of credit or the loan?
Both. We're paying off both. Well, actually, sorry, no, we're not paying off the loan. So it's the line of credit. The loan payments don't start until November.
And if the PPP is forgiven, how does that change the scenario?
Yeah, so the PPP, if it is forgiven, basically the purple bars go away and that becomes revenue for the school. And so you would no longer would have that liability on your books. You would just keep that cash. And so in terms of our cash balances, it means that, well, in terms of our cash balances, the orange bars stay the same, but the purple bars go away essentially. And then our operating income also increases by that approximately 300,000 in loan that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll run through the next few slides fairly quickly, but feel free to ask any questions as I'm going through them.
I'm sorry, Amita, it's Tracy. I did have a question on this, on the PPE or the PPP loan. And I had to step away. So if you talked about this, I apologize, but do we know yet if this is, I mean, you know, all the research we did in deciding to go after this was looking like that we would not have to pay this back. Has any of that changed? Do we know?
It has not changed.
Okay.
Basically, banks are waiting on the federal government to see if a new stimulus package goes through, because all of the iterations of the stimulus package has kind of different criteria on forgiveness, essentially making it more flexible. So they don't want to go through all the, all of the paperwork and having this very complex application if they can simplify it. And so all the banks that we've talked to or heard from have basically indicated they're on hold until they can see if there's a package passed, and at the federal level that would make that program simpler to determine the forgiveness, or just determine what does that process look like. Got it.
Thank you.
And pretty much the expectation, of course, this could change, right? Is that anyone that has a loan out under 2 million, it could be forgiven. Pretty much, like I guess they would assume that the loan was taken out in good faith, and a very simple
it becomes a
application
grant,
process, and then it becomes a grant, and then that changes the dynamic considerably. All right, thanks, Amita.
Yeah. Okay, so just a few of your options just to be aware of. There is an option for a deferral exemption. I don't recommend necessarily this because you do have to certify that you would become insolvent and cease operations if you didn't get this deferral exemption, which you have access to other financing to be able to, for that not to happen. You also have to run this by your authorizer, and so that might be something that could raise some flags. And so I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it is an option, is to apply to the state to be exempted from deferrals. It is first come, first serve, and the first application for it is due December 15th. And so if that is something that the school wants to pursue, it is something that you'll want to make sure that you make that decision before December 15th. We haven't seen the application yet, so I don't know exactly what it will entail, but in the past, cash flow has been required, and so we would anticipate providing that. The other option is something called the ASAP program. So the ASAP program essentially allows for charter schools to receive kind of financing for their deferrals through the state as well. So it's through CSFA, which is an entity of the state. Essentially, the CSFA will pool all of the schools that apply to this and be able to get a bond issued to CSFA that they can then pass on those funds to the schools. If you decided to apply for this, there is no fee related to it. You can apply. It's due October 23rd, and then and then you would vote as a board if you were to keep this or decide to take these funds in February. The downside of this program is that the costs, you do have kind of a issuance cost of 1% to 5%. Looking at the amount of loan that you would probably take, it would be about a 1% cost, and then the projected interest rate is 1.5% to 3.5%. So, but you would be approving whether or not to take this financing in February, and you wouldn't know what your actual financing interest rate is until March. And so at that point, you wouldn't be able to change your mind on it. And so it would be additional, borrowing costs that you don't necessarily need at this point because you do have the line of credit, but it is something that you could consider applying to in October, just to kind of see if you would qualify and see how much that would be, what quote they'd give you in terms of cost. The other program is the California State Deferral Financing Program, which is run through 2 private companies. So CAM, which helps you with your receivable sales, and Stiefel, which does facilities financing. They are basically doing something similar. Well, the Stiefel part is similar to what CSFA is doing, where you do a pooled kind of bond financing. The rates are a little bit higher, but the lead time is a little bit less, so you can make that decision a little bit later in the process. There's one application through these private companies, and you can apply at any point to kind of see what it would look like. And through CAM, it would be receivable sales, which you would not necessarily need, but if you were to, you could at least look at this as an option for financing through Stiefel if you were interested in getting an additional loan for that. And then the PPP, I think we talked about most of this already, but essentially we're still waiting on the applications to come out to apply for forgiveness. So we don't anticipate knowing about forgiveness until probably the spring at this point, unless an application comes out in the next month. And so just knowing to keep that in mind in terms of planning is that at this point we plan to pay back the funds until we can get more information on forgiveness, and hopefully we'd be able to get everything forgiven. At this point, I don't anticipate any problems with having enough expenses to be submitted for forgiveness. So just waiting on that application. And then the last slide I have is the balance sheet. So just highlighting that your liabilities are going down, even though we are anticipating liabilities to go up at the end of this year due to deferrals. Based off of your liabilities at this point, we have seen a decrease in terms of your loan balances. And so even compared to just 2 months ago, we're looking slightly better than on the liability side than we were. So continuing to move in that right direction. Any questions on any of that?
Great. Okay. Thank you, Amita.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to item 7, approval of consent items. Item 7.1 is the minutes from the August 28th and September 14th meetings. Are there any questions or comments on those minutes? Any changes? Anything not look right? Okay, consent item 7.2 is the check register for May through July and May, June, July, and August. Any comments or questions on those? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I motion.
Do you have a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a roll call.
Okay, Alon is absent. For me, Carla is absent. Robert?
Aye.
Tracy?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries. On to item 8.1, learning community and attendance plan. It's a key part of the overall budget packet for K through 12 that seeks to address funding stability for schools while providing information at the local educational agency LEA level for how student learning continuity and information on how services will be provided for unduplicated students during the ongoing COVID-19 crisis in the 2020-2021 school year. The provisions for the plan were approved by the governor and legislator in June with SB 98 and can be found in Ed Code section 43509. The plan replaced the local control accountability plan requirement for the 2021 school year. Reach STEAM Academy held a public hearing for the plan on Monday, September 14th at 6 p.m. During a special board meeting, the executive director was able to review the sections of the plan for any applicable expense related to the actions. Reach administrators and staff were able to answer questions regarding the school reopening plan and review Riverside County's elementary school waiver application process. For information on the plan, please review the Learning and Continuing Attendance Plan page of the Cal Education website. Dr. Renty, did you want to go over this?
Yes, I actually have. We finalized the plan. Really, it's hot off the press. I'm sharing my screen with you all now. And so this plan takes into consideration the little bit of feedback that we did get from parents, conversation that we had with the board 2 weeks ago. And it basically outlines, again, what our budget is and how we intend to address and mitigate learning loss, right, due to COVID. And so as the summary suggested, this replaces the LCAP. And so the LCAP is something that we've submitted in terms of like our budget and the allocation for those unduplicated pupils. We submit that every year. Well, it's actually a budget that we submit. It's a 3-year budget, and every year we come before the board with an update. But because of COVID, there was a pivot to this learning continuity and attendance plan, as it is a watered down version, so to speak, of what the LCAP would have been. But again, it's more specific and geared toward how will we address learning in this new environment that we're faced with for this year. So that being said, this is the actual template that will be up on the website. We're in the middle of, again, there's a few little, well, it's basically done. And so this basically goes over general information about the school, who we are, and what happened during school closure. And so we've reported to the board that school was closed, as everyone knows, March 13th due to mandated school closures at the state and the county level. And basically we know that by immediately on that Friday, Reach sent home packets with students, and they had work packets that was pushed out to all students effective that Monday. And then by Wednesday, all of our teachers from 3rd grade on up were teaching via Zoom. The lower grades gradually got into, we situated lower grade and got to the point where most of our classes by the end of the year were pushing out classes online. And so we kind of summarize that here a little bit, and we talk about how we use Zoom and Google Classroom and Seesaw, and also made technology available to any families that were in need. And that technology has included Chromebooks as well as hotspots and some iPads that have been lent out to families to make sure there is equity as it relates to equal access as far as technology is concerned. The impact that it's had on our school as well as others has been, we're noticing now that we're in distance learning as we've started this year, is that we're losing probably an average of 40 minutes per subject for core subject per day. And we're expressing, it basically says that parents are expressing difficulty as it relates to just connectivity, getting kids to obviously stay engaged online. We're noticing that from a classroom perspective, there's less dialogue between teachers and students because the time online is so limited. So there's been obviously a major disruption in education. However, as a school, we're continuing to provide rigorous academic instruction through asynchronous as well as synchronous learning modalities. And we will continue to work hard to make sure we mitigate as much learning loss as possible. Regardless of how well we feel like and how hard our teachers have been working, we did see, we did assessments at the beginning of the year. We do STAR assessments as baseline assessments actually. And we've noticed that our kids in reading actually did pretty well in terms of retaining information despite COVID and that summer loss that normally happens. But so reading was okay, but we did see quite a bit of a decline in math scores. And so that would be, so we're seeing some exacerbated gaps in math and science. And we're seeing the gaps between our low income and some of our minority students due to like this new learning modality. The plan also asks us to identify stakeholder engagement. And so we identify here all the meetings that we've had with parents over the summer with Coffee with the Director, as well as our meetings with the board. We have attached here our distance learning resources, as well as any updates that we've presented over the summer, our recorded Coffee with the Director sessions here, our school reopening plan, and all those kinds of things to show the efforts that we've made as a school to keep all of our stakeholders updated and engaged and yeah, basically up to date as it relates to where the school is and throughout this process. That was, so there was also a question here about, you know, how we allowed for public comment, and so we gave that detail there. I'm going to move here. So this is the coup de grace. So this basically is the budget. And so how are we spending the allocated funds that we have to address our unduplicated pupils, which are basically our low income, our foster youth, English learners. What are we doing with this pocket of money that's allocated for this group that's going above and beyond what we do with all of our other students? And so we have an allocation of about $625,000 in this category. And so we have to show how money is being spent. And so you'll see here that extra custodial and maintenance costs of $28,000. PPP so far, we estimated about $19,000. I think that we're lowballing it here. Probably at the end of the year, we'll see that we've spent a lot more. Modifications to the facility based on the new need due to COVID. And so you'll see the hand washing stations, face shields, signage, et cetera, is about $55,000. So in this particular category, we're looking at about $120,000 having been spent. You'll also see additional PPE here, actually about another 1,500. And again, the hand washing stations, just another breakdown here of about 63,000. The water filling stations, you'll see that allocation there. I think that we've gone over those in details, but do you have any questions about any of that so far? Just FYI, we did hire an additional person to assist with cleaning up of the campus. We have a really thorough and very well liked and well loved, a custodian that does an amazing job when she's here during the day. We also have a night crew, but in order for us to sanitize and keep the environment clean in the way that we need to, we're noticing that during the day we did need to add, again, another custodial staff member. And so here's that continuity of instruction. And so we've gone into detail in terms of what those supports look like. We've talked about what we have. We don't have foster youth, but right now identified, but we do have low income families. And so what have we done to go over and above for these students? So again, we talk about the technology that's been loaned out. We also talk about here, you'll see the sped ed services that are available and the counseling services that with Miss Venice is on the call. She's a licensed clinical social worker, and she is really on call 24 hours for any families that are in crises. And then we've outlined some of the plan that we have to address the trauma that some kids might be going through due to COVID. And so that's all been identified here in this particular plan. And a lot of these things we've shown you throughout the summer, but again, this is writing for a different audience. And so there's nothing new per se. It's just, this is just the overall plan itself, you know, based on how we're spending certain funds. So pupil participation and process, again, we go into the Zoom and how the 45 minutes or so on Zoom, a lot of our teachers teach for about 20, 30 minutes, and then they allow another 15, 20 minutes or so for students to work independently. Our teachers hold office hours, as well as small group tutoring for kids that need it. They're literally working from since when they get here at 7:30 until they leave at 4:15. So even though classes end at 2:15, our teachers are still holding office hours, providing extra tutoring, small group tutoring for their students as needed. Distance learning, professional development. So we talk about the workshops over the summer and how we've tailored them to the needs this year, all which we've reported to the board, various staff roles and responsibilities. Pupils with unique needs, again, those are our English learners, our students that have special needs, how they're learning, how learning is being addressed for those students. One of the things too I'd like to bring your attention to is our outreach program. And so that is our program, and we've mentioned this to the board as well, for those individuals that are home insecure. And that could mean either they're homeless or they might be doubling up with a family. And so we have really ramped up our outreach program as we identified and presented to the board at a previous board member meeting rather. And so we have created a pantry of sorts and a full plan in place so that if a family is in need, we can take care of them as soon, as quickly as possible. We've gone over some of the things that we've done with our special ed students, and so our sped ed team actually works in small group and one-on-one every day alongside our teachers. Our sped team is still pulling small groups, providing resources and services to everyone that all of our kiddos that are identified as needing services, from speech to educational services, are still being pushed out. And then we're looking at here another allocation of funds. And so these were actions related to distance learning and monies that have been spent. And so you'll see here that we've spent over $200,000 on textbooks, materials, and supplies for our students. Another $102,000 on computers and hotspots. And I believe this also includes, it should include the Promethean smartboards and other miscellaneous funds here. So an estimated total of $344,000. So we're already superseding and exceeding that $625,000 allocation. And then here's a breakdown. Our staff did a really fantastic job of going through and line item, just kind of indicating like all the various items and how they've been spent. So you'll see what we pay for instance, for Seesaw, which is a application that the TK and kinder classes use. We spent $1,000 on that. $31,000 on new math textbooks. Let's see, you'll see the Promethean boards were about $91,000. And Smarty Ants, which is another program that we use, $2,100. Renaissance Learning, so that's our STAR assessments at $14,000. And so it basically allocates line item by line item, all the things that we've gone over with you all. We've just, again, we've just indicated in detail here what we spend on each item. And so hotspots cost us a little less than 10. And so that includes not only the hotspots, but also the annual cost of keeping those hotspots connected and providing services. And here again, this is the learning loss. And what I want to say here is one of the biggest changes this year is our focus on data. And so what we know is that if we can, data drives instruction. And so what we've done is we've set it and we've had quarterly data meetings, but one of the things you'll see now at Reach is that we're doing weekly data meetings with our teachers. And so we're drilling down data. We're using a lot of interim assessments to see where students are. And what's beautiful about the data is it helps to guide and focus instruction. And so we look at data, we look at the skills that are missing, and then the teachers adjust their learning based on either mitigating whatever that gap is, or, oh, I have a kid that's advanced and needs more enrichment in this area. We use the data to then make those adjustments to classroom instruction. And so that's one big change this year. Again, we've always had quarterly data meetings, and now we're having them. So we meet, admin meets with them every other week. And then if we're not meeting, they're still meeting as a team to plan, look at, and drill down on data. And so there's a pupil learning loss strategies. And so a lot of this becomes redundant. We've talked about as well. So the small groups, the varied instruction. One of the things that we did was the teachers, you know, we'd gone through COVID before. So going into this year, a lot of our teachers created little manipulative packets that they sent home. So kids went on with their own supplies so that when teachers are teaching math online, the kids take out their supplies and the kids can still manipulate the base 10 blocks and the fraction strips and things like that to help facilitate that engagement piece and to keep the learning strong. And so a lot of, as a matter of fact, at the beginning of the year, we spent a sizable amount of money on just making sure parents had what they need. So any parents that could not afford the supplies at home or just wanted to come and grab ours, they were able to come and do that. And so kids went home with the paper and the supplies that they needed in order to be successful. You'll see in this category actions to address pupil learning loss, and you'll see intervention services. We've coded a few of our intervention staff to this category for $90,000, and then professional development, $60,000, and we've coded some certified staff here. So the funds total here is $150,000. And then here's where we go back to the mental health and social and emotional well-being, and this is our sped ed department. Again, it goes back to the services and the therapy that's provided by Venice and her staff. It also outlines the bounce back program that we've talked to you all about in terms of being able to, through some questioning strategies or a questionnaire that's sent to the students, and they ask a few questions, and then Venice and her staff are able to identify which kids might be going through trauma due to COVID. And then they pull those kids and work with them specifically. So she and her staff are they've gone through extensive training, they've printed out materials, and they're all ready to go. So once those kids come back and they're here, we'll start the screening process. And so that's something that REACH is doing. And so that's what we're doing in that category. Pupil and family outreach, we've gone into detail here with regards to what we're doing as a tiered approach to make sure kids are still able to learn. So if a kid can't get on Zoom, when it's being taught live, then those sessions are recorded, and a parent can call in and say, you know, I need help catching up, or I need packets this week. We're not able to be online, and so we're making those adjustments to make sure we're working with our families as best as possible. With regard to nutrition services, we're still providing meals every day from 7 to 2 p.m. We've presented to the board what that, you know, that this is still taking place. And then this outlines to the state and the county rather, what we're doing to make sure those meals are served in a safe manner. Let me stop there and see if you guys have any questions so far. I have about 3 more pages. Any questions? All right. So that's our nutrition services. We have seen a decline in kids that are actually eating on campus presently or picking up lunch. We anticipate that will change, obviously, when we're back in person learning. And so we'll still, again, every day provide the breakfast and lunch to our kiddos. So additional services here, again, this is the outreach program. And so we've coded some staff salaries here for about $40,000. And then another for communications, we've coded some staff salaries here for another $37,000. And then we have supplies for nutrition services, $5,000, and attendance and engagement. So that's an entirely different animal this year. As we've indicated, we've talked about the fact that we're not paid on ADA, but we're paid on basically engagement and enrollment. And so we do anticipate maybe having to substantiate how we're tracking daily attendance regardless. And so Ms. Navarro and her staff, I've coded some of their salary in this category as they do quite a bit on attendance. And so that's $146,000 here. And then you'll see the percentage that we needed to show above, this last year was 12%, this year 13% of our allocations needed to go toward increased services for those unduplicated pupils. And you'll see that it's a supplemental of 542,000, a concentrated amount of about 81,000. So here's the total amount that we needed to spend. Obviously, those numbers, I think it's like 500,000 that I've shown. I'm sorry, above, I think we're at 650 or so. So we've exceeded that amount, which is basically what we would want to indicate. So here, as we wrap up, this basically shows there's another question that again says, so of all the things that you're doing, what are you doing for those unduplicated students? What are you doing for your English learners? What are you doing for your low income students? How are you going over and above to make sure these students are having their needs met? And so here we talk about the professional development, the restorative justice practices and whole brain teaching, trauma-informed schools, and all the things that we do with our staff here. We talk about support and workshops and training and the purchase of new materials for students and textbooks. We also just kind of outline here that we'll continue with an EL coordinator and part of the salary being allocated there. That we'll continue with the APAC, which is the African American Advisory Committee and coordinator, because our African American students are our lowest performing demographic at this time. And so we do want to make sure we highlight that group to make sure their needs are being met. As an aside, we've also been trying to get a school site council off the ground. Folks are busy and we're not getting any hits, but we'll keep pushing that this year as well. And then again, we have to show, okay, so what are those increased services? And so you'll see the purchasing of additional computers, setting goals and math goals for just those students like our English learners and African American students that are our lowest performing currently, or was at our last time we tested. The tutoring, and so those things that we'll continue to do that we've always done as at Reach to make sure we are meeting the needs of all of our population. So that is it in a nutshell. It really is a compilation of all the things that we've been reporting to you over the last few months. But again, this is our needing to, number one, hold a public meeting to get parent feedback, make sure we're keeping the board abreast of how funds are being spent. And then again, we need to hold a board meeting for approval. And so we are recommending that the board approves the learning continuity plan as is written. Any questions? Questions, comments? Tracy?
There is a question, Dr. Renty, about what it would take to get the school site council off the ground. A parent posted it.
That's awesome. So all we need is, so a meeting notice will go out in October. We will be holding another meeting online over Zoom. And so all we need is enough parents to become involved, because one of the stipulations of the school site council is we have to have half as many parents as we do staff. And last year, I think only Malinali's mom showed up to our meeting. Hi, Mrs. Zavala. And so we haven't been able to get any traction. And so I think people have been busy, and then COVID happened. And we're hoping that now that we're holding the meetings online, that we'll be able to finally get traction with that. So definitely you want to look out for that invite, and by all means participate in the Zoom. We are trying to establish a parent team that will partner with the school to help to start the school site council. What's awesome about the school site council is it speaks directly to these issues. And so it's parents at the table having conversations about how money is allocated and spent for the betterment of the kids. And so we definitely want parents' voices to the table. We have parents on our board. And so we definitely want to get that council off the ground. So thank you for your interest. Any other questions? That's all I have. We just recommend that you approve it as is.
All right. Any other comments from the board?
Your voice went away. What happened to your volume?
Can you hear me now?
I don't know. Is it just me? You're far
You hear
away.
me?
Yep,
Oh,
there
there
you
we go. Now we can hear you.
Guess
Was your
that thing
mic
needs to
up
be
over
in
your
front of my
head?
mouth.
Oh, there you go.
That helps sometimes.
Is that what that's for?
A little technicality.
All right, so.
Oh, Marcus, Rachel, Marcus said he's trying to ask a question or something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me,
He says he's muted. Going once, going twice, Marcus.
I don't think I can unmute him.
yeah, everyone should have that capability on their own.
Put your question in the chat. We're moving on.
Why don't you stop sharing your screen, Dr. Rennie, and then we can see.
All right, let's see. I forgot I was still sharing. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, does that change anything?
Marcus, why don't you try to type it in the chat?
Anybody else with a question in the meantime? Going once, going twice?
I do have a picture of the shields that Ruben and the team made if you'd like to see them.
Do you have? Yeah, they
Cool.
did a good job.
They did an amazing job. Let me see if I can share. So here they are. This is
wow.
On them.
And so what they're doing is we have like a little heat gun to just kind of smooth out this material here. But yeah, they've done a great job. And so they've made different configurations depending on the table, and they were painting and installing, and it's really cool.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where they're positioned on the desk, essentially the table, and then they seal it right to the other picture that was listed that I just showed.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Venice. So good point, Marcus. Thank you. So one of the things he was saying is if you're interested in school site council, we would love to get your name. Or if you can email us directly, we would love to get you connected. We've been trying for 2 years to get it off the ground, and we really just need for it to catch hold. And we know that, we'll be successful at that point. So if you want to leave either your information in the chat or just email us directly, that would be fantastic. That's all I have.
Great. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the learning continuity and attendance plan for 2020, 2021? We have a second?
Lauren?
A second.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, we get a roll call vote.
Hold on, let me make my screen bigger. Okay, Alam is absent. I for myself. Carla absent. Robert?
Aye.
Tracy?
Yes.
And Ashley?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Ashley, were you going to say? I'm sorry, Tracy.
I almost said here.
Oh.
All right, motion carries. On to item 9, board comments. Any comments from the board?
This stuff looks great. All of this is incredible.
Yeah, the work going into this is just amazing. It's just
great.
amazing.
Listen, it is a lot of work.
Yep.
But I am so proud of our staff and how hard they work and how much pride they take in all of it. Our teachers, as a matter of fact, we're giving out stipends. We had enough in the budget to give. Oh, dang it! I didn't want to say it out loud. I haven't given them out yet. Never mind. I'll tell you next time. I'll fill you in later. I'll tell you later. But yeah, so they're working so hard, and we work all the time with the team. We're always taking like a temperature check, like how are the teachers doing? What can we take off their plate? And then we try to take things off. They're like, but all this is so good. Like all this is needed, and it helps our kids, and they work really, really hard. So
right.
So proud of them, honestly. And the staff has been this year like helping me write the plans. I used to do all of that by myself, so everyone's been stepping up. It's been really great. It's been a great
awesome.
effort. We appreciate you guys too. I appreciate the parents on the call. We would love for
Yeah,
parents
definitely.
to call in and be a part of this for sure. And we really need that school site council off the ground. If I can plug it again, as a school with over, I think 20%, we have like over 50% of our kids are low income, and the threshold is 20%. We're mandated by the state to have a school site council, and we have tried for 2 years unsuccessfully. So hopefully this is the year we can get it going.
Dr. Renty, there's a question in
Yay, I see somebody gave us, Ashley Hawkins gave us her information. Can
Awesome.
I take that down? Okay, yay. All right, Mr. Finley, write it down.
Also, there was a
Carl's
question
here.
on how long we anticipated children having to wear shields and masks.
That's a good question. So that'll remain a mandate until the state lifts that, or the governor, right? And so right now it just seems indefinite, unfortunately. And so, and again, that would be third grade on up are required to wear masks. The little ones, which is why we're creating those shields, obviously do not have to, but it is recommended that they wear the masks. We're not worried about the little ones as much getting sick. We'll take all of our precautions, but we are concerned that they might be carriers. And so think about the fact that they will be around adults like our school nurse is expecting. And so we want to keep her safe. And so shields and masks are super important, and the physical distancing aspect is something we'll continue to do. So right now parents can expect to have their kids wear those masks until there's a change at the county and state level.
I don't know if
Someone said yes, to take staff too. Absolutely. Thank you.
yeah, I will speak for myself, but I am going to have a fair amount of PTSD around this whole situation, and I will probably have a mask in my pocket indefinitely. So yeah, there's a story out right now about New York is surging again. This is just nuts. So we got to do what we can to do our small part and wear the mask.
And so we've been very successful, just as we're ending, thankfully with, our staff, we've been extremely cautious, and we've been back on campus since August, and we're doing so far so good, right? Prayer, knock on wood. And so as the kids come back on campus, we have to be equally, if not more so cautious. As we told you guys last time, we will be taking temperatures as they're getting out the car. Like, parents will not drive off until their kid has been cleared. Like, we'll do everything that we can to keep our staff and our kids safe. So
did you, I know we talked last meeting about testing. Was there any update on that? I had my third one on Saturday, by the way, at the Sears.
So it's very interesting. So the nurse, I don't know, maybe I don't see Joanna on the call. Oh yeah, I don't know, maybe Joanna can give us an update, but I know that the last time I talked to the school nurse, so we checked on Sears, so for instance, but they said if it's related to your job that you can't come and get free testing. So that was interesting, right? And we don't want to tell our staff to like go get tested there, but don't tell them it's for, job reasons, right? And so we were still looking at other options, but part of the waivers, we had to identify what our rotation schedule would be. And so effective like October, we would start testing half the staff, then we would rotate the next month and test the other half. So we do have a rotation schedule. And then Amanda was coming up, who's the nurse. She was trying to identify some places that we could go get tested. And there's like a kit that you can test yourself, a self-administering kit, but it was extremely expensive. And so it doesn't make sense to tell us to have our staff tested and then there not be anywhere for us to send them.
No access to it. That's yeah. The first two I had were the nasal swabs, and I don't know how you do that yourself. The one I had Saturday was actually a throat swab, which was a lot better.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I'll see what I can find out too. I'll kind of snoop around a little bit. I know that there's a lot of outside organizations that are providing it too. So I'll snoop around a little bit too and see what I can find, because it's important. I mean, you have to know your status.
Yeah. I can snoop around too, because I think that's odd. That
it is.
Because I know I've been tested 3 times too, and they've never asked me why.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Just
your job releases you, Robert, to go? Is that what you do? Or do
No,
you
it's just you do it on your own.
Yeah, I just done it on my own, just to be, because I've been out and about from day one, so I just do it to make sure
Exactly.
I'm the only one leaving the house. I just do it to make sure I'm good and not bringing anything home.
Yeah.
But I've called, they've never asked me why.
I know there is a place on Walkins and I believe it's Day Street that they have it. You just call, make the appointment. They don't ask you questions.
Yeah, is that through Riverside County Health?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, that's the same one. The Sears is the same way, and I, honestly, I don't see the harm in calling. I'm a teacher. We're in the office every day. We just want to make sure
just want to
that
be safe.
we're good before our kids come back. I don't see the harm in that.
And I don't think you even have to divulge that information because
I
got tested.
Same.
Yeah, they don't ask you.
They don't ask you that at all. You can just go and voluntarily get tested.
I think it was because we were asking, like, can we send our staff there? And they literally said, no, you can't send. Like, you don't. And like, it didn't make sense.
You probably had somebody who didn't want to do the extra work.
Right.
Don't send your staff here. Yeah, that's crazy. Like but if you come on your own without saying, why
they won't ask a word. They won't ask a thing.
Yeah. But I mean, those are the things, obviously we're going to have the sites and everything, or a list of, here are the places that you can go. And she did identify some of those places where you can go for testing. And so maybe by just giving them a list, it's like, you can't say my job sent you here. It's just like they gave me a list, and this is one of the list. I don't know. And if they don't ask, then that's fine. But yeah, so we do we have a hybrid or an A/B schedule for the staff to do on a rotating basis to go down and be tested. So that's part of the safe school reopening plan. So
She did. Dr. Renti, the nurse, she did identify 3 more places after we did the research in Sears, but they're not free options. But there are 3 local places that she's identified so far. So we do have, something in place in case we don't find something for free.
Where I went, they don't charge you. They don't even ask you if you have insurance. If you don't have to say anything. And I'll get you, I don't remember, but I know where it's at. Give me some time and I will send it to one of the teachers, the email, or maybe you, Dr. Renti. I can't find it right now, but I will get it. It's, I know that it was a lot of people just going. They don't ask you any questions, like I said. And it took me like a week to get that appointment, and I have the results in 3 days.
Okay, good. Yeah, maybe we'll just say, here's a list, make your own appointment, go.
Yeah.
And here's your month to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring us your results.
I should be getting my next one, but I've gotten them same way in like 2 days, 2 to 3 days.
2 to 3 days
call.
is usually.
Awesome.
So.
Thank you for that. Mrs. Avila, just send me the name of that. Can you email it to me?
I will. I'll look into my results, and I should have the name right there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
I had a question. Maybe it's posted on the website somewhere, but is there access to, is it just go back to the regular schedule starting November 2nd, pending that we start back on that date? Is it like 7:45 to 3:15, or are we on this modified schedule when we start back?
Right. So it's actually 7:45 to 2:15. So we did shorten it by an hour.
Okay. And then are we bringing back houses? I know this is my daughter's first year there, and I know that was such a big thing last year, and I was, we were really excited. So is that something that we plan on starting back up, or?
That's going nowhere.
Okay.
Absolutely. So we're just working on how to induct them next month. So yeah, we're going to figure out a way online. I don't know if we're thinking of doing like just each class. We'll have like a time to come on Zoom and we'll spin them in. And so, yeah, we definitely plan to do that and figure out a way to do house competition online. Because that is, it's really cool.
Let the board know about those competitions, because I'm ready for that.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. So good question.
Yeah, that was a great question. All right. Anything else? fair enough. Okay, I will then adjourn the meeting at 7:36 p.m. The next meeting will be October 26th. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Me, Jen. So Robert.
Before I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to, I don't see Marcus on the call. I see Susie and Venice. I just want to make sure before we get off, we have the parent contact information. Is anybody getting it?
Dr. Renzi, save the chat.
The entire chat.
Oh, you're going to say the chat?
And I'll send it to Marilyn.
Awesome.
I've already sent it to Dr. Renzi. She's got it.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Sorry, Tracy. Go ahead.
That's it. Meeting is adjourned. We got a first and a second?
Yay.
And we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
guys.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.